LEGO Battles is a phenomenal video game, but that was not my first impression of it. And to understand why, we need to go back to the year of our Lord, 2009. Imagine you're about 8 years old and you love Legos. You have the sets, you have the games, and there is no way that you're gonna miss a new release for anything. Every LEGO game that you've played up to date has looked something like this, because you were just young enough to miss some of the PC games that looked something more like this. So these games, this classic Traveler's Tales LEGO formula, is what makes a LEGO game to you. And you love these games, but you're getting a little tired of just seeing constant licensed themes and wish that LEGO would make games about some of their really cool unlicensed themes. But what is this? A new game? Let's watch the trailer together.
From medieval times.
Oh my god.
To the high seas.
We get pirates, we get castles,
Galaxies.
we get space. Look at this, it's a 3D game. Oh my god, I'm so excited to play as all of these characters I'm seeing right now.
6 storylines and 90 levels.
90 levels?
Wizards, pirates, and aliens can battle it out. LEGO Battles.
You need that game. So you do what any 8-year-old does, and you beg your mom to take you to Toys R Us. She eventually caves in, and you head down to Toys R Us, you pick up the game. On your way back, you're excitedly reading the back of the box. You get home, pop in the game, and you get this. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? That's what I would have said if I spoke like that when I was 8. But that's what I would have said the first time I launched this game, because I was heartbroken by this game, to the point that I nearly begged my mom to let me return the game and pick out something else. But for one reason or another, most likely the fact that my mom didn't want to go back to Toys R Us in the same day, I ended up keeping the game and just throwing it back in my game collection. And that is exactly where it sat for about 3-ish years, until I was 11 or 12. And then I decided to give the game a second chance. Because as we all know, when you're 11, you aren't a kid anymore, and you don't like baby stuff. So maybe, I thought to myself, my new big adult brain would allow me to enjoy this game as I had initially hoped to. And this was when it actually clicked. This was when I saw the LEGO Battles light, and I became obsessed with the game. I played nothing else on my DS until I finished the entire thing. I had never played anything like it, and frankly there has not been any RTS that can hold my attention like this one did since, so what did this game do so well? Let's get into that. LEGO Battles is frankly a weird game in terms of its place within LEGO's discography of sorts. It was developed by Hellbent Games, a team who only ever helped develop an RTS on the Xbox 360 called Supreme Commander, so why they had any connection to LEGO at all is a mystery to me. The thing that attracted me to this game initially the most, which was the fact that it didn't use any licensed themes, was actually very intentional. This game began as multiple independent games, each referencing some of LEGO's most iconic themes, with sets coming out the same year that LEGO Battles did, titled LEGO Space the Video Game and LEGO Castle the Video Game. And per the lead creative director of LEGO Battles himself, the original idea of the game was to create multiple different games, almost like Pokemon, where players could trade units with their friends who had purchased other parallel versions of the game. However, eventually this idea was scrapped in favor of creating just one larger cohesive game, but that makes sense because each one of these individual games would have been somewhat sparse in content compared to the final game that we ended up getting. And really it's fine that we lost those other versions, because the only thing that actually got scrapped from them was the ability to take some of your friends' units if you beat them in multiplayer, but otherwise everything from those base versions just got put into LEGO Battles. Getting into the actual gameplay, this game is really weird and different from anything LEGO made prior to this, and frankly anything they've made since other than Ninjago Battles. This game was actually received relatively poorly compared to the LEGO games that came before, with an average score of about 70, which isn't terrible but is lower than all of the other LEGO games, and that's likely because it's such a stark deviation from what people expected out of LEGO. But looking at it now, the game is actually amazing. This game is an RTS, which is an abbreviation I've been saying for most of this video, but in case you weren't aware, an RTS, or a real-time strategy game, is just one of those games where you're looking at a top-down map managing units. It's the thing you see on a white guy's computer just moments before you hear the most questionable historical takes of your life. Anyway, these games are absolute kryptonite to me. I grew up on Halo and COD and fast-paced games, so this style of game makes me want to smash my head into a wall, but LEGO Battles doesn't have this effect on me at all. I don't know if it's the simplicity of this game since it was intended for a younger audience, or if it's just the charm of the LEGO models themselves, but I was always able to power through the usual RTS boredom far better in this game than any other I've ever played. The basic gameplay is just commanding units out of your base camp, with the win state being that you've eliminated all of the enemy soldiers or captured their base camp. Most of the single player levels have a specific objective or mission, like finding a specific item or protecting a specific structure for a period of time, but the core gameplay in multiplayer is just a war of attrition, and I think multiplayer is really where their focus was in developing this game. The single player mode is split into 3 separate themes, those being castle, pirates, and space. Each of these are further split into a hero and villain story for a total of 6 campaigns. Ideally, I would want to make a video covering all 6 of these campaigns, but just for the sake of your time and probably interest, I'm only going to go over 1 from each category. But before I do, I want to honestly, this is the most boring part of the video. I'm just going to kind of go over the units and structures that are in the game, just so when I actually get into the story, you'll have some base understanding of what's going on. But like I said, this probably isn't the most interesting part of the video, so skip here if you don't care about this more detailed explanation. And if you stay, I love you. There's 6 types of units in this game, the first being your main hero, which would be like the king or the alien queen, who is by far your most powerful unit. They're able to heal themselves by standing near your base camp and in turn allow the camp to repair itself. Probably their most useful skill though is their ability to passively heal any unit standing near them, which quickly turns any group of soldiers into an unstoppable force that can self-heal anytime they take damage. The next unit is the builder, who is the absolute backbone of your army. They allow you to construct the buildings that let you expand your empire and create new units. Interestingly, these are non-combat units, so they will ignore enemies in favor of honing their craft, but that doesn't mean that enemies will ignore them. Your main damage comes from your close combat units. Very simply, they run at stuff and punch it. Range combat units are the same idea as close combat, but with more firepower at range in exchange for less health. Up next are mounted units, who are basically just close combat units with more health and more mobility, which are really useful for discovering new areas in the map before your opponent can build there, but they require a lot more resources to construct than the previous 2 units, so there's a bit of checks and balances that you have to do. And finally, there are special units, which I always considered to be the vehicle class when I played this game as a kid, because this category ranges from small on-land ballistas to actual transport ships like pirate ships to alien spaceships that you can fly over your enemy as a bomber. The thing that makes this game so unique and replayable to me is the different art and the textures that each of these units have depending on the factions that you choose. The game even lets you unlock Santa Claus as a playable character if you play the game on Christmas Day, which kind of just reinforces the fact that they wanted you to play this game multiple times with different heroes and get a sense for all these different characters. And he throws presents? Yeah. Okay, next we're going over the structures, baby. I know this is kind of boring, so I'm going to try to get through it quick. Let's go. Okay, first up we got the castle. That's going to be your base camp, essentially, where you can build the heroes and builders, who are the most essential units to build the rest of your army. Next we got the farm. Farms just increase your unit cap. You get +4 base units and +1 special unit for every farm that you have in your kingdom. Lumber mills. This is just a resource drop-off point, as it says in the game. You cut down trees, and then this gives you a place to store them. Mines. The only place that you can build mines are on these cracked spots on the ground that you find randomly around the map, but when you have a mine set up, it's a constant source of income, so it's super vital to find these before your enemy does. Barracks. As you might have guessed, this lets you build units, the 3 most basic kinds, those being, as I mentioned, the close range, long range, and mounted units. Special factory lets you build special units. The usefulness of this varies quite a lot depending on the army that you're playing as, because if you're playing as aliens, it lets you build bombers ships, but if you're playing as a knight, it lets you build dragons. So it's like, it's really interesting. All of the cool stuff is in this, but this is the cool stuff section. You got shipyards, which, as you might have guessed, let you build ships. Towers are useful for defending areas of your kingdom that you don't have people actually manned at, because they'll have a good amount of health and do a good amount of damage, and you don't need to maintain them really. Walls, it's a wall. Bridges, it's a bridge. And with all of that boring stuff out of the way, it is time for us to get into the actual interesting part of the game, the story. Damn, you're really trusting, huh? You just clicked that timestamp. You didn't know where it was going to take you, but you believed in me. And this time I didn't lie to you. I just wanted to point it out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I told people to click here to skip the section that you just watched, but you watched it because you're awesome. Anyway, to the story! So we're starting off with the pirate campaign, as I mentioned. The campaign begins with a black and white cutscene flashing back to the origin of Brickbeard's map, reminding us that
War never changes.
I actually really enjoy these cutscenes because they showcase that classic LEGO slapstick humor really well. Yar. That was crazy. The cutscene then flashes back to modern time with our player character Brickbeard getting turnt in the pub before he dines and dashes, getting away with the first piece of his treasure map. The first mission here is pretty simple, with you just beginning to build up some of the base units in your army, because you can't have a booty without a group of dudes? Who put that in here? This first mission introduces us to the shipyards that I mentioned in the building structures section, which allow you to build a couple pirate ships before setting sail on the 7 seas, or this one lake, I guess, and finding 2 Imperial ships and destroying them. This is the first part in the campaign where you're actually able to build transport ships, which are not actually all that useful, I found out, but I just loved using them as a kid, and I thought they were really cool because you could put 4 units in them, and if you get a bunch of them, you can just carry a bunch of transport ships over to your enemy and unload your army on them. And I was never able to actually get that to work, but just the idea of it was so cool that I always had a very positive impression of these transport ships. This next mission's actually quite similar to the first, with you building up some shipyards, building some ships, and then going to destroy some Imperials, but this one goes a little bit further, with you needing to specifically find some outposts and destroy those. I feel like now is as good a time as any to mention that there are actually mini kits in this game. There's only 1 per level, which I love, and for the sake of 100%ing all of the DS games, I wish all of the other LEGO games took note from that, but there's 1 per level, but if you collect all of them, they generally will unlock a special character for each army. The places that they're hidden are relatively predictable because most of these maps aren't too big, but they can be pretty fun to look for. I found that it was just kind of a fun extra objective at the end of every level, so I did end up collecting each mini kit in the levels that I played through. And now I'm realizing if I were to replay this game, like seriously, I'd probably do it on the DS, so there's no reason for me to collect the mini kits other than I wanted to. So that right there just shows how fun it is that I, without question, was just kind of searching for them. Level 3 is one of my favorites within the pirate campaign because it introduces the Islanders, who are such a cool faction, and I just really wish were actually playable. Those dirty colonists are trying to destroy some of the Islanders' temples, so it's your job as their pirate allies to come in and aid a hand in defending them. What makes this level so cool, though, is the abilities that the Islanders have, because they can summon these tikis that are really cool and can actually become part of your army that you command around. You do unlock an Islander as a special unit, but they're just a ranged unit, and as far as I can tell, there's no way to get these tikis as part of your personal army in free play, but they're so cool and I wish there was. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what? Tiki Golem? I can control the Tiki Golem? Level 4 is another absolute banger, with you needing to hunt down 4 sharks around your lands. It's so fun trying to hunt these sharks down because they're far out in the water usually, and they just behave so differently from any of the other enemies in this game and offer a really unique type of variety in the enemies that you're fighting, because they never come back again as far as I know. The first 3 sharks are more aggressive and kind of show themselves to you immediately, but the last one is a bit more elusive and hidden, so while our pirate friends are in search of that final shark, why don't we go check in on our wizard and see how he's doing. The answer is not well, apparently, because he has lost the love of his life, and now needs a magic crystal that is only in the middle of the king's kingdom to bring her back. So in a romantic story, in the name of love, he brings back the dead to build a skeleton army to siege the kingdom. Ladies, would your man do that? Think about it. That's a true ride or die, or ride when you die. Right? Wait, there's a joke here. There's a bit here. Wait. The first mission is you building up that skeleton army before all the king's horses and all the king's men get hit in the head by your skeleton. Bars. The main objective of this mission is just to find these piles of bones so you can continue to build up your skeleton army. In the second level, the king gets wind of your growing skeleton army and sends some of his soldiers to shut down production at your cauldron. So it's your job to come in and show him who's boss and fix up your cauldron so you can keep production moving. Once this is complete, your next task is to destroy some nearby kingdom outposts, which you and your now growing skeleton army do with relative ease. I definitely should have mentioned this by now, but each of the heroes have their own set of special magic abilities that are unique to that character. For example, the pirate can summon these crabs, and the wizard can shoot fireballs. These are sometimes useful for doing some extra damage to your enemies, but for the most part, I think they're here just to be kind of flashy and fun. The most useful abilities for you as a hero are actually your status abilities, which generally are a speed boost, and then depending on the hero that you pick, it can be an attack or defense boost. But these are by far the most useful things, as they actually affect your whole army in a serious way instead of just launching a one-off fireball and missing. Back to the story, the third level is pretty much a duplicate of the second level, except you're defending graveyards instead of defending cauldrons. But the fourth level is actually pretty interesting, with you searching for a magic scroll somewhere in one of these ancient ruins. I just found these fetch quests to be a lot more interesting and a nice variety to mix up the otherwise kind of monotonous gameplay of just attacking or defending structures. And the next level starts with a joke that I thought was pretty funny, where the wizard is complaining that the king built something in his barren wasteland, like it was his barren wasteland he was intentionally keeping barren, and he's pissed that someone put something there. Again, this is a pretty basic mission with you taking some time to build up an army before you go and attack the towers and clear out the king's influence. But just because these missions are repetitive doesn't mean that they're bad. I don't feel like you really need much of an objective other than go hit the enemy for this game to be fun, just because the process of building up your army is satisfying. I just am not talking about it in this section because it's not part of the story, really. And the final mission of the wizard's story in Act 1 sees the king mounting a full-scale invasion against your main base, so it's your job to build up your defenses and protect your base camp from the oncoming foes. This mission has a 15-minute timer, so our wizard friend down there has a little bit of time to wait before the king actually shows up. So in the meantime, let's pop in and see how our friends are doing with the shark. Bro, you still haven't found it?
Oh, I mean, we're trying.
Well, I know, but I gave you a lot of time. We gave you like 5 minutes. I talked about a different story and came back. You're not done?
It's hard. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. No, that's fine. We'll come back. I
appreciate it.
So I guess they're busy, but in the meantime, we do have another story to talk about, which is the space story, which I have to mention the music. Because this faction has the best music in the game. Oh my god, just listen. Tell me that's not a banger. Tell me that's not a bop. Tell me that's not fire. Oh my god. But besides the fact that the music is really good, this is actually quite a unique and compelling campaign. Speaking of music, actually, the first cutscene opens up with Gemma and the guy one, who I can't remember the name of, arguing over what music to play on their journey to Mars. In the scuffle, Biff, I looked up his name, hits the wrong button and drops their batteries, which I don't know why that was a button. So they have to make an emergency landing and search for a new fuel source. They get lucky and find that the planet they landed on is rich in fuel crystals, but they quickly are going to discover that that's not the only thing on this planet. Upon setting up your initial base, you start finding some alien green men. Spooky. That wasn't written down. That was off the dome. You take out the spooky goo men and complete your main quest of picking up cargo dropped off by your command ship. Because these little green critters are surprise to Earth Command, they request that you capture one to research them further. I assumed that this would be a combat section, but you just walk up to the alien and he joins your party for no reason, seemingly? Like, you must have offered something really good. Did we just brainwash it? Once you make it back to your base, you're tasked with destroying 2 nearby alien outposts who are defended by some of my favorite Lego pieces ever that I totally forgot existed until I saw them in this game. This piece is actually from Lego Exoforce, which is one of the absolute best retired Lego themes, even though I would argue Ninjago somewhat fills that void, but not the void in my heart. These robot devastators were so sick because my favorite part of them was that their eye color was just whatever axle you put into the back of their head. So like, if you wanted them to have red eyes, you could put a red piece, or blue eyes if a blue axle. I loved it. I loved them so much. Anyway, in the third mission, your scouts discover an even more powerful fuel crystal, this time a purple one, and send you out to search for it. You run into a small alien camp, clear it out, but the crystal is nowhere to be found. This seems like it might take a little bit like the shark, so while they're looking for that crystal, why don't we check back in on our wizard and see how his castle defense is going. Oh, look at that! He held the line! Look at him! One last thing to do, go smash up those king's outposts. And with the King's Outpost destroyed, that is a fitting end to the wizard story in Act 1. Speaking of our other stories, it's been a little bit since we've checked in on our pirates. Let's see how they're doing. Okay, that's you found a mini kit. That's not a shark. Oh, fuck. Okay, yeah, that's a shark. With those sharks no longer a threat, now we can move to our next pirate mission. The 5th level of the pirate story sees you rescuing one of your crewmates who's been shipwrecked on a nearby island. This mission took me quite a while compared to the other missions, just because the map is so big. But I'm realizing now, looking at the footage, that they marked 2 shipwreck locations on your map, and I just now realized I was supposed to search in those areas, but so I wasted a lot of time going around this side of the island for no reason. Don't worry about it. Anyway, by the time I actually came across the lost crewmate, my ship was fully loaded, so I was forced to make one of my other crewmates take his place on the stranded island while I brought the first guy back. And then for no other reason than I genuinely felt bad for this compilation of pixels and code, I actually went back to save the other guy, ending Act 1 of the pirate campaign. And now that we've wrapped up our first 2 stories, let's check back in on our friends up in space. And would you look at that, they found the purple crystal just sitting on the side of a river bank. That's it. In the next level, your team discovers the location of a second purple power crystal, but unfortunately, it's being protected by aliens, so you build up your army and smash through the aliens' defenses to take their fuel source. I'm starting to feel like maybe we aren't the good guys here? Don't question it. Okay. Mission 5 sees us defending our main Mars command base, as the aliens were unsurprisingly not too pleased with our violent advances. I was expecting this mission to be one of the time-based defense levels, like a lot of the other ones that I had mentioned, but instead you actually start away from the command base and have to make your way over to it, fight off 2 enemies, and then repair the base to win, which this was a very quick level, but fuck it, I'll take the easy dub. And the final mission is something totally original that you have never heard of before. Let me spell it out for you. Here's the story. You found an alien base, listen, wait for it, with another purple crystal. Pause. I know, I'm sorry. I know it's exciting. I actually don't mind that these 3 missions are exactly the same thing because this theme is cool as hell, so I'll just keep enjoying building up these robots and smashing up the native fauna on my way to get these crystals. And with that final crystal collected, we have now covered at least 1 act from one of each of the themes in this game. And yeah, that's right, this was just Act 1 for every one of those stories, and that was only half of the stories. So if we take there's 6 stories with 3 acts in each one, with about 5 to 6 levels per act, that's a lot of levels. So for the sake of this video, I decided to keep it somewhat concise and just give an overview of some of the variety of the story missions. But if you guys are at all interested or enjoyed this game like enough to want to see me complete the entire thing, I would consider adding it to the list of 100% every Lego game games, but that would just take a while to complete, so I'd only really do it if there was interest from you guys. I would be down to do it, but that's a lot of time to sink in if no one's gonna watch it, so let me know. Now moving on to the part of the game that I spent the vast majority of my time as a kid on, the free play mode. This is the absolute best part of the game because you can take any of the units from any of the 6 armies, including the special units you unlocked with the mini kits, to build your perfect dream army. For the sake of this video, when I was going through the free play mode, I decided to make an army of space police, dragons, and trolls, all led by the wizard with the ability to summon alien spaceships. And that's just one combination of characters. There is so much potential to make interesting combinations between all these units and find synergy between certain formations or abilities. Like in most of the games that it's in, I think the free play mode in this game is by far the most fun part of the game. But I will admit that I am a bit rusty at this game, so my initial time playing free play was far from the most fun part of recording for this video. I tried to just kind of do what I had done in story mode, but since I didn't actually remember any of these maps from being a kid, I took way too long exploring and trying to gather resources, so by the time the enemy actually started sending over some of their soldiers, I was nowhere near ready. I think it's over. I think it's over, man. I can't even tell what's happening. It's over though. Yeah, they got me. But I felt like I had a better game plan going into the next round. One of my biggest issues in my first round was the fact that I was lacking resources, so I made it one of my main goals to find resources and make mines as soon as possible. This allowed me to build my army up alongside the enemy and not immediately fall behind, but despite building a pretty sizable army, the game still decided to fuck me in another way. The path following. I haven't explicitly mentioned it up to this point because I assumed it was pretty obvious just from watching the gameplay, but the way you move units in this game is by selecting them and then clicking on where you want them to go on the screen. If there's nothing between them and the spot that you click, this process runs smoothly, but when there's any type of barrier, be it a structure or a natural landmass or another player, your army will begin to shit itself in confusion and either run back and forth or just get completely locked into place. And this is exactly what happened to me. I was in a position where I had an advantage over my opponent. Their hero was overextended. I had an opening. But let's see what happens. I lost because my guys couldn't walk around a corner. At this point, hey, yeah, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got in that situation, because I fucking am too. At this point, my hero is at max health, and theirs is at half. In theory, I should be able to win this, but of course, over half of my damage base is stuck watching the battle from the other side of a fucking hill! Safe to say I lost that one, but I still had some fight in me, and this time I felt like my luck would change. The game plan here was to play defensively and get my specials up. Instead of sending my hero in as part of my main raiding army, I built up smaller squads of dragons and alien ships to kind of slowly poke at the enemy camp to get some more intel. After one of these raiding parties, I realized I was just a little bit ahead of the enemy's production in terms of specials, so I began to ramp up the dragons in preparation for another smaller raiding party, all while fighting off some small pushes from their enemy infantry. Once I had my specials ready, I sent in my pink dragons and space marines for another skirmish, hoping to get more of a sense of how the enemies had progressed and potentially thin out some of their ranks, but what I got when I arrived was so much sweeter than I could have expected. They had overextended so bad, I didn't even have to go into their base. I just drew out their captain and boom, victory. And I'll admit it tasted a little bit less sweet after getting my ass kicked by bots on a children's game twice prior, but hey.
A win is a win. A win is a win. I don't care what y'all say, a win is a win.
And with that, we have covered all that LEGO Battles has to offer. I love this game. And I'm willing to admit that a large part of that is just the fact I played it as a kid, but as an introduction to the RTS genre, this game is amazingly simple, colorful, and playful in a way that I could just see drawing a lot of other kids who otherwise would have been more averse to RTSs into the genre. I don't foresee LEGO ever putting the time or money into something this niche or specific again, but I'm so glad they did here. In general, I would love to see them invest heavier into their non-licensed properties and give us something on par with Mars Mission or LEGO Pirates, instead of just re-releasing a 15th version of the Millennium Falcon that nobody asked for. I know that those licensed themes sell well and it costs LEGO money to create original IPs, but there's nothing like that classic LEGO charm. And it is for that reason that this game will forever have such a special place in my heart. So to wrap this up, thank you LEGO Battles for being as weird and unique as you are. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one. See you.